What is going on, Comic Fam? It's your boy, the Bearded Comic Bro, and I am joined by comic writer Kelly Sue DeConnick. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Greg.
I am so excited to talk to you about comics. If you don't know Kelly's work, uh, you have your Wonder Woman Historia book, which is fantastic. You have Bitch Planet, your Captain Marvel run, like all the stuff. And you currently have a book from Dark Horse, FML, which has been fantastic. And I can't wait to talk to you all about this. But I always like to know first, did you always have a love for comics growing up, or did this kind of come later in life for you?
No, I definitely always had a love of comics growing up, but it didn't occur to me that anybody made them for a living. Um, so it wasn't something that I aspired to do. I feel like I kind of fell into it a little bit backwards, but yeah, I know I grew up um on Air Force bases overseas, pre-internet, and I read comics constantly. Because we didn't get American television, and so that was my kid thing. And then when we moved back to the States when I was 12, on my way to school, there was a used bookstore that had like a comics bin. I think everything was like 10 cents. Read comics on and off my whole life.
Okay. Yeah.
So, yeah.
So where was it then at that point? Because you said early on that you didn't realize like that you could turn this into a career in life. Like, where was it for you where you kind of saw that switch of like, this is something I could pursue?
Um, so I was an adult living in New York, pursuing theater of all things, and I was active on a comics posting board and just sort of started participating in stuff there because I'm pretty social,
Yeah.
and so that was it was more of a social thing. And then like I'd done a couple of anthologies and then got a couple gigs and like I don't remember making the decision that like, oh hey, this will be my career.
Yeah.
It just sort of like at some point was like, oh hey, this is what I do.
Yeah. No, for sure. And one of the things that like I said, you've written some of my favorite stuff. Your time at DC, the Wonder Woman Historia, and then obviously Captain Marvel at Marvel. Um,
Thank you.
and but for you, like, how is it for you trying to figure out like what stories you want to tell? And like obviously IP and stuff like that is different, but how do you kind of come about like going, this is a story I want to tell and kind of pursue as a writer?
Yeah, I mean, I keep a list on my desktop that I call sweater threads. And anytime I have like something where I'm like, oh, there might be a story in that, then I'll kind of jot some notes down in the sweater thread file. And, over the years, I've sort of figured out what what are the things that are the catchiest ones, like the ones that have like the most barbs on them that I'm gonna like really find something there. But yeah, it's kind of like Richard Feynman, the physicist, used to keep a list of his favorite questions. And then when he would come across something like a new idea, he would run his new idea past his favorite questions and see if that opened anything up or moved anything forward. And it's kind of like that. Like I keep a list of these sweater threads, and then when I have a slot open to work on something or I need to pitch on a particular thing, I'll kind of go through my sweater threads and see if there's anything there that unlocks or moves something forward or um yeah.
Yeah. No, I love it. And you mentioned Richard and you mentioned Sweater Threads, which both have tied into FML in
Yeah.
the back matter of some of your stuff in those comics and as well as in the storytelling. So let's hop into this series. At the time of the recording, issue 5 will have just come out in this. And so
Oh, I
where
hope you
was
like it.
I loved it, by the way. So
Yay.
it's so good. This world that you've crafted is in Portland, and this whole just universe of dealing with family relationships and things like this has been a wonderful journey. So, for people that haven't gotten to check out this series yet, what's kind of your elevator pitch for it?
Oh, I'm terrible at elevator pitches, but I'll do my best. It's okay, let's see. It's the team that brought you the 2010 Captain Marvel run, which that's super catchy, isn't it? So me and David Lopez, um, and and it's kind of very autobiographical, but not um see, I can't do
It's just,
but okay, so David is a cartoonist
mhm,
who does comedy really well and does like everybody's really expressive,
yes.
everything's kind of like at 11. And although he also does still reflective moments very well too, but that took me a little while to learn that. But so when I was looking for something to do that would be appropriate for him, this is not literally our lives in Portland, but it's like the wind chill. It's like what our lives in Portland feel like.
Okay.
Um, so, when they give you the temperature and they're like, it's 30 outside, but the wind chill says it's 22. It's like it feels like it's 22. Um, this is like living through the pandemic and raising kids and the political situation in the US and being a sandwich generation Gen Xer with elder care responsibilities and teenage care responsibilities, and my husband and I both being freelancers and somehow having 5 dogs to take care of, and it's sort of like it's how insane our lives feel.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, and then one of the things that I noticed right off the bat, right, is you have deal with a lot of, family situations, right? Of the perspective of being a parent in our political climate and how to navigate this world that we live in right now and,
Yeah.
still living your life, but still trying to be the best parent you can be for your kids and vice versa. You're also telling the story point really well from the kids of like, they're like, this generation is going through some stuff that we didn't have to go through growing up. And like, so they're
Yeah.
processing stuff differently too. And, you're tying it all through with the storyline, but like, it does feel semi, like autobiographical to all our lives.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I think that's one of the interesting things I've found is that there's this weird alchemy that happens that the more specific you are, if you're honest, the more like universal a story is, which is really weird. It doesn't make any sense that like the more specific I get about my experience, if I kind of dig down and try to be really honest about it, the more I'll be able to connect to people who don't have exactly my
Mm-hmm.
experience. Like I don't get that, but it seems to work. Um and yeah, I don't know. It's some sort of some kind of weird art alchemy, but I mean the POV switches back and forth between the son and the mother in this family both narrate the story.
Yeah.
So, uh yeah.
It's Well, and you have this, you like you said, it's semi-autobiographical of like, and it's being set in Portland, and the idea of getting to see these different locations. And the very first issue I remember, because I had just been to Portland a couple months ago, and you had a map of Portland there, and I'm like, oh, there's this comic shop we visited. There's this comic shop.
Yay! Yeah. I
Uh,
love this weird town. I super love it here. So yeah, that makes me happy.
so was it always kind of a point to, because it kind of feels like a character in and of itself, the city being a part of the book. Like, was that important for you as you're telling this story for you both? To like, let's make this kind of feel like this location.
Yeah, because also I kind of wanted to like make fun of ourselves a little bit, like there's so like there was a point at which I was like traveling. This is pre-pandemic, but I went to go visit some of my family in Texas, and like the guy on the plane was like, "Oh my God," like he had like a very Fox News idea that Portland was just completely on fire, and it was like, "Yeah, no, we're fine. We're fine. Like you can get a flat white around the corner from the protests, like we're good." No, like it just the idea that the rest of the city or the rest of the country has about Portland is very funny. And but also like I mean there's some part of me that's like, yeah, no, it's really bad here. You should not come. Like, uh
Keep Portland us for us.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like lock it down. Like, oh no. It's Beirut in the 80s
Yeah,
here.
you don't want to be.
Yeah.
And so, I mentioned in there, the back matter, the
Uh-huh.
map, you even talk about the sweater threads that you mentioned already on this. And there's so much. What was this kind of catalyst of, because each issue has this back matter in there. Like, what was the driving force to have that and then kind of like figuring out what makes the cut? Because it's different in every issue.
Yeah. So I always do back matter in my books, and that I'm creator on books. And that largely comes from the fact that um I want them to be a good financial value. Comics are expensive, and I want you to feel like there's a lot of different things to give you ideas and entertain you and offer you opportunities to connect to people. So I mean, so a big part of it is just like a value add. Um, and then, also I've been like digging around a lot with like ARGs lately and sort of thinking about the ways that we can take a transmedia approach to storytelling. And so trying to experiment a little bit with that in the back matter as much as my schedule will allow has been a big thing for me. And then also just because it's semi-autobiographical or whatever. And Patty, the mom character, is my age. She's a cartoonist, which I clearly am not. But she was a riot girl from the Pacific Northwest, which I am not, but we have a shared love zine culture.
Mhm.
And so kind of wanting to play with that idea and put some zine stuff in the back too was a big
Yeah.
interest.
Oh,
So,
well, I love that aspect too of like you're giving back to, like you said, to the fans too that are reading this and are invested in these comics. And there's so much that you can unpack and dig deep into, which is just a lot of fun as a reader because it's like, oh, well, this is also fun. Like, and you get a little bit insight into that, so which is also nice.
I haven't been able to follow through with it on the schedule that I had hoped because I'm always behind on everything. But with the transmedia stuff, there's like all the URLs point to something, and there's like you can download 2 episodes of Patty's favorite podcast that she listens to in the book and stuff like that.
It's so neat to do. So for you as a career, you've been writer for a long time doing this process. How was it then kind of coming back to a creative team that you were familiar with? Because there's a lot of creative choices throughout this book where it's like, like there's a double page spread where they're kind of moving apart. Like, how much of it is like you saying like I want this to happen versus, your creative team kind of saying like, what about this idea? What's the collaborative process like for you?
Um, I mean, David is just brilliant.
Yeah.
And I mean, the wonderful thing about creator-owned comics is sort of, you pick the people that you want to work with. And I love Chris Peter. She did the first arc of Bitch Planet. And she's just tremendous. Uh and Clayton and I have worked together our letter 15 years maybe at this point. At least 10. Like Clayton is always my first choice. And part of that comes from, part of it is he's he's also brilliant. And it sucks to be a brilliant letterer because the better you are your job, the less people notice it.
Mm,
Which is makes it kind of thankless.
mm.
And he's so good, and he's not an ostentatious dude, he's not a big, he's he's real chill and real like confident in his creativity, and
Yeah.
it took a long time, much longer than I think it should have, for people to be like, oh no, Clayton Coles is like the man, and also he understands I don't have a visual imagination, and I need to rewrite sometimes after I thought I was done once I see it, and and there are letterers for whom that is deeply problematic, but Clayton is very willing to work with me on it, and I'm very understanding that, like, if I ask for more changes than is appropriate to bill me again, or it needs to push the deadline, like totally fine.
Yeah.
I don't wish to make nobody's life needs to be upended. I don't see pictures in my head, so I
Okay.
can't like figure out necessarily what it's going to look like until I see it.
Yeah.
So, I've learned a lot, but there has to be sometimes, a couple of revisions to make things work. I know something doesn't work. I'll try one fix, it doesn't
Mhm.
work, and then try another fix. And Clayton's just always really great about it, and is really a terrific communicator, and knows that I'm not going to be like, I need another revision right now.
Yeah.
It's going to be like, well, it either has to, like it has to upload. Can you get to it by this date? If not, I'll live with it how it is. If it really has to upload, or we'll push it.
Right.
I'm not gonna ask anybody to upend their life, and at the same time, I don't get like scolded. You need to be able to have this perfect in script.
Right.
I can't. So we can't work together if that's the case.
Well, I've heard it said before too that like it's really hard to notice a good letter, but it's very easy to tell a bad letter, right? Like so
Oh,
like
that's true. Yeah.
and so like it is, you don't notice it very often, but it's very easy in comics like, ooh, the lettering's not good. But if it's good, it blends right in. It's part of the
Yeah.
story.
If it's good, it disappears and just becomes
Yeah.
sound in your head.
Yeah. Love that. Um, I wanna ask you too, a little bit about like the process for you. Is it different? Is there a different approach for your writing style when you're doing a creator-owned book like this or Bitch Planet versus when you're dealing with an intellectual property like Captain Marvel, Wonder Woman? Like, how does the writing process really change for you, or not really too much?
Not really. I mean, I try to write everything like I own it.
Yeah.
Like you want to go in like with as full of confidence as you can manage, and kind of don't take the gig if you don't have something to say. Like And there have been times when I thought, oh, I don't have anything to say about that character, and then somebody will be like, hey, but what about this? And then I mean, like Aquaman is a good example of that, right? Uh we were all sort of sitting around with Brian Bendis when he went over to DC, and he was ill at the time, and we were like, hanging out with him in the hospital, and Brian like pretty much likes to talk about movies, his family, and work. And we had exhausted, I guess, movies and family, and so we were he was like, wouldn't it be fun to get everybody together at DC? And he was like, would you want to do Supergirl? And I'm like, yeah, I should definitely go from making my career with Carol Danvers over to Kara Danvers. That's a super good idea. Um, and then like he was like, what about Aquaman? And it's like, no. And then Matt was like, I'm sorry, can I just remind you, Mr. Jason Momoa has just recently been cast as Aquaman. And I was like, oh, that's right. Hello, Mr. Jason Momoa. And then, I was like, do I have something to say about Aquaman? And kind of started messing around with the character in my head a little bit and like thinking about what model I would use for it. And then found my take that I was like, oh, no, actually, like here's a guy whose foundational wound is like this abandonment by his mother. And then it's always good if you can link their wound to their gift and like the thing that makes him this special power that he has is this telepathy with sea creatures. And so if the connection is he can call every being in the ocean back to him except his mom,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
And it's like, oh, that's something to work with there. There's like also he's this like hyper masculine character, which I adore, but his special ability is the ability to ask for help,
Mm.
which is not a thing that we traditionally think of with a hyper masculine character. And because he is, I don't think of it as his being able to control, it's not psychomanipulation, it's telepathy, it's communication. So he is asking for help.
Yeah.
So he also has to deserve it for them to show up. There has to be a reason for,
Yeah,
and
it's he doesn't
yeah,
just command it. There's a respect of like, no, there's a reason you're asking, we're going to help because
yeah,
yes, I love
because
that.
you've proven yourself to be, um, a hero or worthy or,
Yeah.
whatever and like just there's so much richness to play with there. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, now I'm invested. Okay, so I guess I'm pitching on Aquaman.
And there we are. Here we are.
And then where there we were.
I would be remiss if I didn't at least ask real quickly about Captain Marvel. Um, it's I remember reading the early runs of Captain Marvel, and we talk about back matter, but one of the things I remember in the very beginning of Captain Marvel in the letters pages, there were two letters that were kind of posted that were like, I don't like this version of Captain Marvel. What are you doing? You're ruining Carol Danvers. I was like, what a confident strategy though of like, hey, this is our we're gonna post these letters in the back of the book because we're confident in what we're doing with the character. Like, is that always just kind of been your take with storyteller? Like, hey, this is a story I'm gonna tell. You're gonna like it, hopefully, or not. But like, this is like, there's a confidence. Like, I think what we're doing is special.
Yeah, I mean, you can't please everybody. And if you don't like my stuff, that I don't think there's something wrong with you. I
Yeah.
think like I'm not the writer for you. Like, go with God. I hope you find something that you enjoy. And that's um, I'm not doing my stuff at you. That's kind of the cool thing about these comics that are parts of these, ongoing shared universes that like my run doesn't make your favorite run cease to exist, like, and hold on. it'll end. Somebody else will be back on, and um like there's a lot of really terrific writers whose stuff is just not for me. And it's not that they're bad, it's just not my taste,
Yeah.
And um sometimes even some of my favorite writers, some of their work is not for me. And it's not personal.
That's what I've always liked about art and, like doing reviews of comic books and stuff. Like I've always tried to come from of like, it's not for me. Like exactly what you said. Like it's not
Yeah.
from like it doesn't mean it's trash. It doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't mean they're or like it wasn't for me. And that's art subjective, right? Like
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so, but there is something about Carol Danvers that has stood the test of time, right? Like the costume, the iconic, what is it about Captain Marvel that has what do you think it resonates with people that has stood the test of time? Like, that we're still talking about Captain Marvel now and talking, and then we're seeing it in the MCU of what the design and stuff like that. Like, what is it about that character that you feel like is so powerful and impactful?
I think Carol ends up being a character who is about like identity and confidence, are these sort of things that she's forever battling. And the foundational wound that I chose for her when I took over was I went through and read all of her history. She was actually, when she became Ms. Marvel, she was conceived of not by me, as a feminist character. And part of that came from the fact that like her dad had um chosen to pay for school for his sons, but not for her because she was just going to get married anyway. Like, the a sort of old-fashioned thinking of the MRS degree, right? And
Mhm.
and so that's why she enlists in the Air Force, so there's this always like I'm as good as the boys kind of thing with her. I am of value. And then there was this interesting thing that happened. I think there's a thing with these characters that have lasted as long as you know these iconic ones do is there's something in them that transcends their teams, you know? So like I I got annoyed that Carol was constantly fighting Carol or some version of Carol or some way that was a reflection of Carol and I that really bugged me. And then I did it twice in my first run. And I didn't even mean to, and I didn't realize I'd done it until after I'd done it. And I was like, oh, I think that's just something about Carol that's going to come through.
Yeah.
And that's, in many ways, she is her own self-doubts are her biggest enemy, and she does sort of try to overcompensate. And, you know, I don't I don't think Carol is the natural leader that Steve is, you know. But I kind of I draw a little triangle with her and Steve and Tony that, in some ways she's a combination of the two of them. She's not the leader that Steve is, but she feels a sense of duty that Steve does, but and she's got this military background that's really important to her, but she's also got the like shit-eating grin, like there's she can spin a wrench. She's got the cocky pilot thing that Tony has.
Mm.
And so I think the three of them make a really nice balance. My favorite thing about Carol is like in the first film, there's a point where like she comes down and like if it had been Black Widow, she would have flipped her hair up in like the Rita Hayworth thing and it would have been dead perfect, but it's not. It's Carol, so she comes up and is like, you know, like like she has to blow her hair out of her eyes and then also like there's a point where one of the scrolls like does a like roar, yell at her, and she like tries to do one back, and it sounds, and I was like, that's my girl, like
Yeah.
that's very her. I love those things about her. She's very relatable in that way.
Yeah. Well, Kelly, I want to respect your time. I know you are busy as a creator. FML, like I said, at the time of this recording, issue 5 is out in shops, so go get it. Uh, is there an end in sight for this series, or is it kind of
The
gonna?
arc ends at 8. We'll have another break, and then it'll be back. And at some point, we have a very exciting announcement about what will happen with the second arc. But I mean, the book will be ongoing as with breaks, as long as David will put up with me, which may not be for very long because I'm late on a script right now, very, very late. And that makes his life really difficult. But I have to, that's the good, bad thing about creator owned is if it's not good enough, you don't like, well, I'll just have to do better next time. You're like, no, no, it'll hold until it's good enough.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I don't want to keep you from getting your scripts done. Is there anything as we close up that we haven't talked about that you wanted to hit on of projects coming up, or is it all right now just focus on FML?
um, no, I wish it was just FML. That would be amazing. It's not just FML, but there's nothing else that I can talk about right now. But I will say that we're very excited in our household for the launch of my husband's run on Batman. So so look out for that.
Yes.
Um so Matt Fraction and Jorge Jimenez Batman, I think starting in September.
I think so. I think so. I am highly looking forward to that as I've got all Batman and I'm looking at a Batman shelf there and when I saw his name attached to the book, I'm like, oh my goodness, like let's go.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so that is my like that character is not for me book
yeah,
is which is like a very like come at me bro kind of thing to say. Since that is Batman is like ground zero of comics. But so yeah, so when he took this job, I was like, really? And then I was like, all right, well, if anybody can make me care, it's gonna be you. So yeah,
well, I
I'm
am I'm also anxiously awaiting that. I'm looking forward to that for but where can people follow
well,
up with
he
you? Stay up
he
to
loves Batman, super loves Batman. It was like the first, the first comic that he read, and
yes.
like just is like, and so it's like, oh, okay, all right, I want this for you.
It's a full circle then.
Yes, yes. So it's gonna be great.
Yeah. Well, where can people follow along with you and stay up to date? So when you can talk about stuff and have announcements, and where can
Mhm.
people find out?
I am on Blue Sky. We also have a FML Discord, which I have not been to recently. Which is pathetic, but again, with work and everything, I feel like I can't go hang out on Blue Sky until I've met all my obligations, or not the Discord or Blue
Yeah.
Sky or any of those places until I've met my obligations. But yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Kelly Sue D, on Blue Sky at like Kelly Sue dot Blue Sky dot social, I think.
Yeah.
And uh and then for Discord, the QR code for that is in the comics. Although this is the most FML thing in the world. The QR code that's in the first issue, I didn't realize if you generated a new one, it would invalidate the old one. And so the night before the first issue went out, I couldn't find the QR code, so I just made another one and invalidated the link for the issue the night before the first one went out. So that was the most Yeah, like
The most your plate is stacked and what is all the stuff on your plate
yes,
and what's it
yes,
causing.
yes,
But it
exactly.
almost feels
Like
like it's fitting for that book. So
yep,
it's
yep,
a happy accident.
yep. So so yeah, the one in the first issue doesn't work, but all the rest of them do. And I put it up on Blue Sky every once in a while, and if you want it and you can't find it, just hit me up.
And I'll post links in the description of this video, or if you're listening on podcast, Apple Music or whatever, that'll be in there as well. Kelly, thank you so much for taking some time to talk about your
Oh,
comics with me.
you're so kind, and thank you for just supporting this medium and this community. And it's really wonderful in a time when wonderful things are really helpful. So I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, with that being said, gang, go pick up FML and hopefully you can find some time to curl up, grab a book, and nerd out. Peace.